What is the difference between life scripts and script modes? Think of the life script as a strategy and a script mode as the part of self that employs that strategy. So, the life script is just that, and script modes are the actors that act out the script.
Many people identify with most of the 18 early maladaptive life scripts. In addition, there is often rapid shifting between various scripts and coping styles. With more than 50 possibilities, talking with someone about all the scripts they have and attempting to track them can be overwhelming for both the client and therapist. This is why the mode model is the best way to explore our inner landscape of self.
Modes condense processes related to multiple rapidly shifting scripts and dysfunctional coping styles into four relatively simple constructs: healthy adult mode, inner child modes, maladaptive coping modes, and maladaptive parent modes. It then becomes much easier for the therapist and client to track the rapid shifts among these modes. The mode model allows the therapist to ally with the healthy adult mode of the client by joining with him or her in labeling and responding to problematic modes that threaten to take over the client and the therapy. Let's take a look at each of these script modes.
The healthy adult mode performs appropriate adult functions such as obtaining information, evaluating, problem-solving, working, and parental decisions. It takes responsibility for choices and actions, makes and keeps commitments, pursues activities that are likely to be fulfilling in work, intimate and social relationships, as well as sporting, cultural, and service-related activities. Healthy parent mode, integrated with healthy adult mode, nurtures, affirms, and protects the vulnerable child mode, sets limits for the angry, undisciplined, or impulsive child modes, and it moderates, overrules, or otherwise corrects maladaptive coping styles and dysfunctional parent modes.
Lonely child mode. Feels like a lonely child that is valued only insofar as they can make their parents look good. Because the most important emotional needs of the child have generally not been met, the lonely child usually feels empty, alone, socially unacceptable, undeserving of love, unloved, and unlovable.
Abandoned and abused child mode feels the enormous emotional pain and fear of abandonment, which has a direct link with the abuse history. Has the affect of a lost child, sad, frightened, vulnerable, defenseless, hopeless, needy, victimized, worthless, and lost. When in this mode, people appear fragile and childlike. They feel helpless, utterly alone, and are obsessed with finding a parent figure who will take care of them.
Humiliated inferior child mode. This is a subtype of the abandoned and abused child mode, in which people re-experience humiliation and inferiority related to childhood experiences by virtue of what someone else did to them, within or outside the family.
Dependent child mode. In this mode, people can feel incapable and overwhelmed by adult responsibilities. They may exhibit strong regressive tendencies and want to be taken care of. This mode is typically related to the lack of development of autonomy and self-reliance, often caused by authoritarian upbringing.
Angry child mode. Feels intensely angry, enraged, infuriated, frustrated, or impatient because the core emotional or physical needs of the vulnerable child are not being met. They vent their suppressed anger in inappropriate ways, may make demands that seem entitled or spoiled, and that alienate others.
Enraged child mode experiences intense feelings of anger that results in hurting or damaging people or objects. The displayed anger is out of control and has the goal of destroying the aggressor, sometimes literally. Has the affect of an enraged or uncontrollable child, screaming or acting out impulsively toward an alleged perpetrator.
Impulsive child mode. Acts on non-core desires or impulses from moment to moment in a selfish or uncontrolled manner to get his or her own way, without regard to possible consequences for the self or others. Often has difficulty delaying short-time gratification and may appear spoiled.
The undisciplined child mode cannot force him or herself to finish routine or boring tasks, gets quickly frustrated, and just gives up.
Happy child mode. When in this adaptive mode, the person feels at peace because core emotional needs are currently met. Feels loved, contented, connected, satisfied, fulfilled, protected, praised, worthwhile, nurtured, guided, understood, validated, self-confident, capable, appropriately autonomous or self-reliant, safe, resilient, strong, in control, adaptable, optimistic, and spontaneous.
Now, let's take a look at the various modes that come from the three maladaptive or dysfunctional coping styles. The three styles are surrender to the script, avoid the script, or fight the script by overcompensation.
There are two modes that fit the surrender to the script coping style: compliant surrenderer and surrender to damaged child modes. Compliant surrenderer mode acts in a passive, subservient, submissive, reassurance-seeking, or self-deprecating way towards others, out of fear of conflict or rejection. Passively allows him or herself to be mistreated, or does not take steps to get healthy needs met. Selects people or engages in other behavior that directly maintains the self-defeating schema-driven pattern.
Surrender to damaged child modes. In these modes, individuals behave as if they are like the child, with the same beliefs, emotions, and behaviors as when the childhood pattern was set up. Sometimes the damaged child mode is a protector mode, and sometimes it is a wounded inner child mode.
There are several modes that fit the avoidance of the script coping style: detached protector mode, detached self-soother mode, avoidant protector mode, and angry protector mode.
Detached protector mode. In this mode, the person withdraws psychologically from the pain of the scripts by emotionally detaching. The person shuts off all emotions, disconnects from others rejecting their help, and functions in an almost robotic manner. They may otherwise remain quite functional.
Detached self-soother mode shuts off emotions by engaging in activities that will somehow soothe, stimulate, or distract them from feeling. These behaviors are usually undertaken in an addictive or compulsive way and can include workaholism, gambling, dangerous sports, promiscuous sex, or drug abuse. Another group of detached self-soothers compulsively engage in solitary interests that are more self-soothing than self-stimulating, such as playing computer games, overreading, watching television, or fantasizing.
Avoidant protector mode avoids triggering by behavioral avoidance, keeps away from situations or cues that may trigger distress. Angry protector mode uses a wall of anger to protect him or herself from others who are perceived as threatening. Displays of anger serve to keep others at a safe distance to protect against being hurt.
There are 6 modes that fall into the fight the script by overcompensation coping style: attention and approval seeker mode, self-aggrandizer mode, overcontroller mode, bully and attack mode, conning and manipulation mode, and predator mode.
Attention and approval seeker mode tries to get other people's attention and approval by extravagant, inappropriate, and exaggerated behavior. Usually compensates for underlying loneliness.
Self-aggrandizer mode behaves in an entitled, competitive, grandiose, abusive, or status-seeking way in order to have whatever they want. They are almost completely self-absorbed and show little empathy for the needs or feelings of others. They demonstrate superiority and expect to be treated as special and do not believe they should have to follow the rules that apply to everyone else. They crave for admiration and frequently brag or behave in a self-aggrandizing manner to inflate their deflated sense of self.
Overcontroller mode attempts to protect self from a perceived or real threat by focusing attention, ruminating, and exercising extreme control in one or more of 3 ways: perfectionism, hypervigilance, or scolding others.
Perfectionistic overcontroller mode focuses on perfectionism to attain control and prevent misfortune and criticism.
Suspicious overcontroller mode focuses on hypervigilance, scanning other people for signs of malevolence, and controls others' behavior out of suspiciousness.
Scolding overcontroller controls the behavior of others by blaming, criticizing, and telling them how to do things in a dictatorial and scolding manner.
Bully and attack mode directly harms other people in a controlled and strategic way emotionally, physically, sexually, verbally, or through antisocial or criminal acts. The motivation may be to overcompensate to prevent abuse or humiliation. May have sadistic properties.
Conning and manipulative mode. Cons, lies, or manipulates in a manner designed to achieve a specific goal, which either involves victimizing others or escaping punishment.
Predator mode focuses on eliminating a threat, rival, obstacle, or enemy in a cold, ruthless, and calculating manner.
This brings us to the maladaptive critical parent modes, demanding critical parent mode and punitive critical parent mode.
Demanding critical parent mode continually pushes and pressures the child to meet excessively high standards. Feels that the right way to be is to be perfect or achieve at a very high level, to keep everything in order, to strive for high status, to be humble, to put other needs before one's own, or to be efficient or avoid wasting time. The person feels that it is wrong to express feelings or to act spontaneously.
Punitive critical parent mode. The internalized voice of the parent, criticizing and punishing the child. When this mode is triggered, the person becomes angry with themselves and feels that they deserve punishment for having or showing the normal needs that their parents did not allow them to express. The tone of this mode is harsh, critical, and unforgiving. Signs and symptoms include self-loathing, self-criticism, self-denial, self-mutilation, suicidal fantasies, and self-destructive behavior.
This concludes our listing of modes from the schema therapy mode model. There are 7 steps to working with modes. 1. Identify and label your primary modes. 2. Identify the origin and adaptive value of the mode in childhood or adolescence. 3. Link maladaptive modes to current problems and symptoms. 4. See the advantages of modifying or giving up one script if it's interfering with access to another mode. 5. Access and connect with the vulnerable child through imagery and other methods. 6. Begin dialogues among the modes with radical reintegration therapy, Gestalt empty chair, and integrative journaling. And 7. Generalize mode work to life situations outside the therapy room.
So, how can I tell if I'm triggered into a mode? That's a great question, and it's a lot easier to answer than you might think. When we get triggered, we move from growth mode to survival mode. Both modes have their own language. Dawn refers to survival mode as the language of reactivity and growth mode as the language of self-leadership.
If you remember from the video about Dawn's LSBM model, when we get triggered into survival mode, the whole parts matrix activates, and the various modes, also referred to as parts of self, react according to the script or scripts that get triggered. When a script is activated, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors seem to choose us. When we are not triggered, we are in growth mode, autonomous of our life scripts, and therefore able to choose our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors instead of them choosing us.
Let's look closer at what happens when we are triggered into our life scripts. Steve Cartman's drama triangle provides a visual map of the language of reactivity as it relates to mode activation. Cartman's triangle is actually rooted in transactional analysis of the 1960s. Young schema therapy and mode work is from the 1980s. As you will see, these are highly compatible models that integrate easily. Dawn also integrated elements of Richard Schwartz's internal family systems therapy, which is also highly compatible. Let's start with Cartman's model first.
There are 3 roles in Cartman's triangle: persecutor, rescuer, and victim. When a person stays stuck in one corner of the drama triangle, it's like they can only see the world, and others in it, through the window they are stuck behind. To the person stuck behind the persecutor window, other people either look and sound like victims or rescuers. Driven by the emotional scab of contempt, the persecutor feels compelled to set them straight. To the person stuck behind the rescuer window, other people either look and sound like victims or persecutors. Driven by the infection of shame, the rescuer feels compelled to intervene and save the helpless victim from the mean persecutor. To the person stuck behind the victim window, other people either look and sound like persecutors or rescuers. Driven by the wound of abandonment, the victim feels compelled to find a rescuer to step in to rescue them from the persecutor, which keeps them stuck in dependency on others.
To learn more about the drama triangle, see Don's other videos on this topic. For now, let's move on to integrate elements of Don's life scripts and parts matrix model and Schwartz's IFS model. Here, we see how the persecutor is in fight mode and the rescuer is in submit mode. Don has added flight mode in the center of the triangle. All three are protector modes. The victim modes are a group of what an IFS therapist calls exiles, which are also known as wounded inner children. They are in freeze and attach modes.
In keeping with what we know about how the brain works, we see a cluster of other-centered rescuer modes embedded in the submit mode category. The neural matrix of the brain consists of neural networks, embedded in networks, and so on. Modes are encoded on their own memory network. So, when we are working with a mode in the therapy room, we are going directly to the precise location of the wounded or otherwise maladaptive mode, which is why working with modes, parts of self, and ego states is so powerful.
Next, we see a cluster of self-centered persecutor modes embedded in the fight mode category. In Don's video on the LSPM model, and in IFS therapy, submit modes are called managers. Their primary goal is to protect the exiles from further wounding by managing the impressions of others. Fight modes are also called managers, but their primary goal is protect the self by managing the submit modes and exiles with demanding and punitive parent modes.
In the center of the diagram, we see a cluster of self-soothing, numbing, and detaching modes embedded in the flight mode category. When the submit modes and fight modes fail to protect or manage the burdens carried by the exiles, these flight modes, known in IFS therapy as firefighters, come in to put out the flames.
The victim modes are at the bottom of the triangle to show that the exiles are in the down position, but also deeper in the psyche than the protector modes. Exiles are the youngest, most vulnerable parts of our personality. These are the parts of self that carry the wounds of abandonment, and therefore, the precise locations for healing. They include the attachment drive modes and freeze mode. They can be vulnerable, dependent, lonely, terrified of aloneness, panicky, and craving connections. In IFS therapy, they don't have a job to do, just a burden to carry.
As an alternative to the drama triangle, David Emerald created the empowerment dynamic. In his book, The Power of TED, he flipped the triangle upside right. The victim mode became the creator mode, the rescuer mode became coach mode, and the persecutor mode became the challenger mode. In this creator mentality, there are no problems, only challenges. There are no rescuers, only coaches. There are no victims, only creators. This is growth mode, which Don refers to as the language of self-leadership. It can only be accessed from healthy adult, healthy parent, and true self modes.
So, how can I tell if I am in growth mode? This is another great question and not that difficult to answer. If you remember the video about Don's Iceberg model, this diagram will be familiar to you. In the Iceberg model, we learn how the wounds of abandonment, the infection of shame, and the scab of contempt formed a free-floating mass of emotional pain referred to as the false self. We also learned that the true self is always there, even though it is like the sun shining behind the clouds of woundedness. Our task is to turn our focus inward to connect from our healthy adult and true self to our protectors and exiles. To do that, we need to access the 8 C's listed here: curiosity, compassion, creativity, clarity, calmness, courage, and confidence. From that place of inner focus, with the right coaching, we can befriend our protectors and heal our wounded inner child modes.